All right, let's talk about Don't Breathe Part 2. This is a movie that was announced a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago, and I remember Fede Alvarez even putting up a poll back then like, what do you guys want to see me do? Don't Breathe Part 2 or Evil Dead Part 2? I wanted Evil Dead Part 2, and I still want it, because to me, there was no reason to have a Don't Breathe Part 2. The way the first one wraps up was fine. It's perfect. I love that movie. In fact, I have a review for it if you want to go check that out. So I was just like, why do we need a sequel to this? And after watching this movie, I still don't see why we needed a sequel to this. I enjoyed it, but there was really no need for it. I really want that sequel though to Evil Dead, and I want Fede Alvarez to direct it. So this one takes place about 8 years after the first one at least, and he's got this new kid, this new daughter that he's basically adopted for himself, and he's teaching her how to survive, to be a survivalist, kind of like what Laurie Strode was doing to her kid in Halloween 2018. And we even have a Halloween 2018 moment in this movie where I think it's in the trailer, where he like grabs a guy through the door, like bursts his hand, and he likes picking him up, just like in Halloween 2018. So these organ trafficking people, collecting people's organs, kidnapping kids, and all kinds of shit you hear on the news in the beginning, they break into his house and they're gonna kidnap his new kid. And they do, and he has to go get the daughter back, or his new daughter back. So it's basically got like an action movie plot, because every action movie back in the day, and even today, it's always like the same thing. Somebody gets kidnapped, and they gotta go rescue them, and that's what this movie is. And I like that. That's one of my first positives for this movie is I like the concept here because I'm an action movie guy, not just a horror movie guy, and I like simple plots like that. It's a very simple movie. It's not gonna make you think. It's not convoluted or anything. It's just like he's gonna go save the day, and he's gonna kick some ass because we watched the first movie and we know he can handle himself pretty well. Stephen Lang is great as the blind man. He's jacked. I want to know his workout routine. I need to get on it. He is intimidating in this one, just like in part one. So yeah, it's got that simple action movie plot. The kid gets kidnapped and he has to go save her. And I like that they didn't continue the story of Rocky from part one. That because that's what I was worried about. It's like, oh my god, if they make a sequel, are they gonna do like a Friday the 13th part two, and then we're gonna kill Rocky in the beginning? Like he's gonna go like track her down somehow and kill Rocky. Like I didn't want to see Rocky and her sister get attacked in this movie. So I'm glad that they didn't bring Jane Levy, the actress, and I'm glad they just didn't do that. So this is a whole different story, new characters, except for the blind man, of course. So, and the cinematography of this movie is pretty good. It's about on par with part one, and there's a couple of really great shots in here. One cool tracking shot that goes from like the upstairs down. It's like doing all those weird movements, and it's just I like shots like that. So the cinematography work in this movie is the camera work and some of the lighting, certain scenes look pretty cool. So it's a very well shot movie to be expected. And this one, of course, like a lot of sequels in horror movies, it's upping the body count and it's upping the brutality, the gore. Like there's a few gory moments. And he's way more vicious in this movie towards his victims, and there's a lot more. And there's a couple of small callbacks to the first one, nothing major. Like the opening shot kind of reminded me of the opening shot of part one. And I like that in this movie, he has to face an angry dog. Because in the first one, he had his dog, who's in this movie. So that's another returning character besides the blind man. But in this one, the enemy has a dog that is trying to attack him. So it's like karma. It's like, how does it feel? Because in the first one, he had that dog constantly attacking them. And it's like finally he gets to feel what that feels like to be attacked by a dog. And the first half of this movie is the best part to me. That's what I enjoyed the most was the first half. Um, it was just quickly paced. It just was had the most tension to me and some of the more brutal parts. So I really liked the first half. Now, as for my negatives, this movie is taking a risk by trying to make the blind man sympathetic, and I don't think they really succeed all that well in making me root for him. Like, I'm rooting for him to rescue the girl, but that doesn't mean I necessarily like him as a character, because he's still a piece of shit. And, I don't know, it didn't really work that well for me. I wasn't really sympathizing with him. Like, yeah, he lost his daughter in the first one, and you understand why he's doing what he's doing, but you don't agree with it, and he's still a bad man. And he acknowledges that he's a bad man in this movie, so at least he's acknowledging it in this movie. He's like, I'm a bad man, I've done terrible things. So he's kind of like, feeling guilt. He's not pure evil. Like, he actually has feelings of guilt and shit, but I don't know, he's not very sympathetic, and there's not enough, like, development of these characters, like his bond with his new daughter in the opening. It just kind of quickly gets to the home invasion part. Like, we just see like a minute of their bond together. It's just not enough. Like, they should have had more there in the beginning between them. Like, the plant lady, she just kind of feels like a throwaway character. Like, she didn't really do much, and there was something that she did that I thought was like a setup for something, and it was gonna like help out later on, but no, there was nothing to that. So I don't know, I just feel like you could have written that character out and it would do nothing. It's just an extra body in here. Spoiler. Shit. But yeah, I mean, there's just nowhere near as much tension building in this movie. Like, the first one was masterful to me when it came to tension building and suspense. This one does not have that level of suspense. There's not a lot of moments where you're like, oh my gosh. Like that scene in part one where they're like in the basement and the lights go out, so they're blind like the blind man. Like, that's a terrific scene. There's nothing like that in this movie. So there's just not enough of that going on here. And because one of the main characters is the kid, that's another reason why I don't feel that tension. Is because I know she's going to make it out. She's a little kid. This is a Hollywood movie, I think, right? They're not going to kill the kid. They're not going to kill the kid. So it's just like anytime, like, she's in a moment where, there's like a ticking clock situation, like time's about to run out, she could die. There's a couple of those moments, and you're like, she's fine. Like, they're not going to kill her. You do have to suspend disbelief in this movie, of course, in a few scenes. Just not going to go into it, but trust me, there's some moments where I was like, okay, sure. And the twist in this movie. Okay, so it's not terrible, but people complained about the twist in part one. Like, everyone, it seemed, like, oh my god, the movie was great until that twist. Fuck that. This one's worse. I actually don't even... I liked that twist in part one. It was fine. This one, I thought, was just trying too hard to try to, like, outdo that one and, like, be more messed up. Like, what can we do that's even more cruel and messed up than that? What can we do to pull the rug out from under the audience's feet and be like, haha, like, we're even more messed up? Like, this twist, I just didn't care for it. Final thoughts. I enjoyed it. It's got, the acting's fine, and like I said, the cinematography is pretty good. It had a couple suspenseful moments in it, not as much as part one. It's definitely got a lot of, not a lot, but it's got a few gory bits in it. So if you like gore and stuff like that, there's a few like cringy moments, something like out of House of Wax in one scene. And so yeah, it was enjoyable, kind of quickly paced. Maybe should have spent a few more minutes in the beginning developing characters more in here and make the blind man more sympathetic, and I would have said that this one was just as good as part one. But unfortunately, I can't say it's better than part one. Not even close, but still a movie that I think is worth checking out. So when it comes to Don't Breathe Part 2, if you're a fan of the first one, I think you'll enjoy this one. Maybe just not as much, but still a movie that I can see myself revisiting time and time again. So add it to your collection. If you like the first one, go out and buy it. And those are my thoughts on Don't Breathe Part 2. What did you think about this movie? Let me know in the comments below if you like it more than the first one. And as always, if you like what you've seen here, you can hit this like button and become a subscriber today just by clicking on my cartoon face in about 5 seconds. And until next time, remember, it's just an opinion. You don't need to get butthurt about it.